Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder why you do certain things even when you know they might not be the best choice for you, or someone else's new study explores a fascinating idea about our hidden motivations. The paper we are diving into today is called Action Understanding with Presentational Goals. Imagine we are all like actors on a stage playing different roles in our lives, but we also care a lot about how the audience sees us. This research suggests that when we act, we are not just thinking about what we want for ourselves or for others, but also what we want others to think about us. They call these presentational goals. This is a really cool idea because it adds another layer to why we do what we do. Think about a time you did something not just because you wanted to, but because you wanted someone else to see you doing it, maybe to impress them or to make them think a certain way. This is what our brains are doing all the time, even when we don't realize it. Scientists have good models for understanding why people act based on what they want for themselves or for others, like wanting to help someone or hurt them. But what about wanting to look good to others? This is where the idea of presentational goals comes in. So how did the researchers test this complicated idea? They came up with a neat experiment using stories with three characters. Red, an actor; green, someone affected by Red's actions; and purple, an observer. The stories had three scenes. First, everyone saw what fruit Red and Green liked. This set up their personal preferences. Then in the second scene, Red made a choice about fruit when Purple wasn't around. This showed us Red social goal, what Red might do for or against Green. Then the third scene was like the second, but Purple was watching. This was the crucial part. Did Red's choice change when Purple was there looking? After seeing these stories, people were asked questions about Red's motivations. They wanted to know, how does Red feel about Green? That is the social goal we talked about. Then they asked, how much does Red care about what Purple thinks of Red? This is the presentational goal. And finally, what does Red want Purple to think? This is the presentational target. To make sense of all this, the researchers built a computer model. The model assumes that Red is trying to balance three things: Red's personal preference for a fruit, Green's preference, the social part, and what Purple thinks about Red, the presentational part. The really smart part is that the model can handle cases where wanting to look good to Purple might make Red do something different than what they would normally do or what Green wants. This part of the model is especially interesting. It says that Red gets extra happiness or utility, not just from the fruit itself, but from shifting Purple's beliefs about Red's social goals. So if Red wants Purple to think they are nice, Red might act extra nice when Purple is watching, even if it means Red doesn't get their most preferred fruit. Red could even want Purple to think they are a certain way. Red doesn't actually feel like being. This is where things get really complex and interesting. So they got 100 people to go through these stories and answer the questions. They designed the stories to be tricky, some where Red and Green had similar preferences, some where they had different preferences, and they varied the fruit choices. And whether Purple was there or not, this created 16 different stories for each person to see. Now, for the findings, the researchers found that people were really good at making these joint inferences. They could figure out not just if Red liked Green, but also if Red cared what Purple thought, and what Red wanted Purple to think. They saw that people's answers lined up really well with what their computer model predicted. Let's look at an example from the paper. In one story, Red might have liked apples, but acted like they liked oranges. When Purple was around, this told the researchers that Red probably did like apples, but wanted Purple to think they were being generous, or maybe even a bit adversarial, depending on the situation. It shows how we read subtle cues. This was totally the core of the study. They found that people systematically made these joint inferences about social goals, presentational goals, and presentational targets. The computer model that combined all these goals worked better than simpler models that only looked at basic features of the story. This means our brains are doing some pretty sophisticated calculations when we figure out other people's motivation. This is a key point. The researchers compared their complex model to a simpler one that just looked at basic things in the story, like who liked what fruit and what choices were made. The complex model that included presentational goals was a much better fit for how people actually answered the questions. It means that we are not just processing basic facts, we are really thinking about what others might be trying to project. When they looked at how well the models matched human answers, the presentational goal, the delta value was particularly interesting. It was harder for the model to perfectly predict this one, unless they added a special rule. The rule was basically, if Red's behavior changed when Purple showed up, then they must really care what Purple thinks. This simple heuristic really helped the model match human predictions. They found that their sophisticated model could predict what people would say about social goals. and presentational targets with high accuracy. But predicting the presentational goal, how much someone cares what others think, was a bit trickier, they found. That people's answers to this question were more varied, and sometimes split into different ideas. This might be because people sometimes interpret, how much does red care what purple thinks? How much does red want purple to think they are prosocial? So what does all this mean? It means that our minds are incredibly skilled at not just understanding what others want, but also how they want to be seen by others. We are constantly managing our impressions, even in simple interactions. This adds a whole new dimension to how we understand people and their actions. And this impression management is not just about trying to look good. It can be about wanting to appear sad when you're happy, or wanting to look tough when you're actually scared. The goal is about controlling the perception, not about being genuinely nice or mean. This makes our social world much more dynamic and complex. This research also provides a cool way to think about social structures like friendships or hierarchies. Imagine if two friends care what the other thinks, but don't care about what a third person thinks. That paints a picture of their relationship. And if they both want a third person to think something specific about them, that can reveal even more about their alliance or their deference to that person. It is like social psychology meets game theory, and it helps explain how we build mental models of our social world without needing pre-programmed rules for every situation. This is a really powerful idea because it suggests that much of our social understanding comes from these low-level inferences about how people balance their own desires with what they want others to believe about those desires. It is a rich and flexible system that allows us to navigate complicated social situations. So what do you think about this idea of presentational goals? Does it make sense with your own experiences? Let me know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this dive into the mind, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more fascinating insights into human behavior. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.